Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. A beautiful, chilly spring morning here in Shiawassee County. We appreciate you making time to be on this call. I've got a few updates for you today. Very honored to have representatives from the district office in Michigan from the Small Business Administration who are going to give an update on some of their available resources. Gary Jones has joined us again to give us an update from the governor's office, and then also a vaccine distribution update as well. Good agenda today. I'd like to actually jump right in with our friends from the Small Business Administration. We're very grateful to have two representatives actually on the phone here today, Lakita Henderson and Sean Gray. Both representing the Michigan district office, and we actually connected here, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and very excited to invite them to meet all of our Shiawassee County stakeholders and to provide an update on what they're working on, what some of the programs are that are out there. I know there are some new ones that are rolling out that maybe not all the details are out yet on, but wanted to at least get them plugged in with Shiawassee County businesses. So Lakita, Sean, I don't know how you guys want to handle tag team on speaking, but I'll turn it over to you and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Sean.
Good morning.
Excellent. Lakita, did you, if I may give sort of an intro for you, or if you care to intro me, either way.
Go ahead, Sean. That'll be fine.
Okay. Thank you so much for having us, and I'm really glad to be here with our new district director, Lakita Henderson. And Lakita has been in our district for over a couple of years. Before I've been here for 2 years, and she's been here for slightly longer than I have, but she's been with the SBA for 9 years and has moved through many leadership positions in the agency. She's a veteran. She's really just been a great leader in our district so far as deputy district director and then acting director and now district director. So we're really glad to have her. And I think the press release just went out today that she's in that role, but we're all really glad to have her here and have her leadership. She has worked in the automotive industry. She is just, really thoughtful in her leadership approach. And so we're glad to have her, and I'm glad to be joining her here today. And with that said, I'll let her take it from there. Lakita, if you care to add anything, thank you so much for inviting me to join you.
Oh, no, thank you, Sean. I didn't know you were going to do all that, but thank you so much. But let's move to what we're here for. And first of all, I want to say that Sean is our economic development specialist who is responsible for an assigned territory. And Shiawassee County is one of his territories. So please take this name down. He is a person that is our liaison, our contact for the SBA. If you have any needs, questions, feel free to reach out to him. Of course, you can always reach out to me, but I want to make sure that Sean is known in this area, and we're going to be working hard to work with you and partner with you to serve our small business community and to help them through this trying time. With that being said, in terms of what's going on now with the SBA, is of course we're taking idle applications. That has been extended to December 31st. We are also inviting those who received an idle advance for the targeted idle advance. And let me, restate that this is by invitation only, and we're reaching out to those to see, of course, with the new act signed by our president, this would increase, allow them to increase that $1,000 or whatever they received that first time around to a max of $10,000. We are also still processing and taking PPP loans, because as you're aware, it was extended to May 31st. And so those are the programs that have continued. Now, in terms of our new programs upcoming, The Shuttered Venues Operator Grant, as you're aware, it launched the other day, Friday, and unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we had to shut it down. It has not come back up at this time, but we're working feverishly to get it back up. And we hope to have it up very soon. And once we do, we will definitely give a 24-hour advance to let people know to prepare that it's going to open again. We want to make sure that everyone knows we have not taken in any applications, made any decisions. So everyone is still on, it's still on the same level. And of course, you know that there's a specific of how we're processing in terms of when the applications come in. We're looking at the first 14 days, those entities that suffered 90 or greater revenue loss will be processed first. And then it will go to a second priority, which will be the next 14 days. And that will be for people who suffered 70% or greater revenue loss. So I want to encourage and let everyone know that we have not made any decisions, and we hope to be opening it soon, and everyone will receive an advance notice. In regards to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, because that's what we're hearing a lot of questions, people are just antsy. Let me say that this program is indeed moving very fast. It is not going to take as long as the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant took to get out to the people. We're looking to hopefully open this up very soon. We spoke with leadership yesterday, and so information will be coming out. You will receive a guide on how to do it, example of an application, and that's all forthcoming. And that's actually all I can say at this time, but it is moving faster, and we're hoping to have a landing page up very soon, similar to how we had for the SBOG, prior to launching it as well. Sean, is there anything else you want to share? Maybe talk about our programs, or if you want, if anyone wants to ask a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I want to go over just sort of some of the basics. Lakita's already covered a lot, but just so that everyone knows, there's so much that has changed about PPP and EIDL since the CARES Act initially last year. And so I just want to give sort of an overview of some of those changes as well for folks who may have been aware of those programs, or even for folks who weren't yet aware of those programs. I want to cover some of the new in programming. As you all may know, in late February and early March of 2021, the Biden-Harris administration, SBA, took steps to ensure inclusivity and equitable relief for America's mom and pop businesses that are anchors in our neighborhood and also help families build wealth. President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act into law on March 11, 2021, and that provided additional relief for hard-hit businesses while building a bridge towards economic recovery. And on March 30th, 2021, he signed the PPP Extension Act of 2021 into law. The SBA is committed to administering the economic aid as quickly as possible and ensuring it's equitably delivered to America's small businesses and other eligible entities. One interesting point is that Congress intended for the 2021 funding of COVID relief to really support the hardest hit small businesses. So there are some changes to Paycheck Protection Program from its initial iteration that are important to note. So some of the changes were that the eligibility for how funds can be used was expanded. Effectively, now with Paycheck Protection Program, you can spend as low as 60% of the funds you receive on payroll and up to 40% on other eligible expenses for the loan to be 100% forgiven. Also, the borrower can select a covered period, which is the period in which you'll deploy the funds between 8 weeks and 24 weeks. The second draw option as well is in place for businesses that were the hardest hit businesses. So typically you're going to need to show that your business was particularly hard hit, and I can sort of talk a little bit about how you'll do that as well. Also, we're looking forward to having an updated and simplified forgiveness form for Paycheck Protection Program loans up to $150,000. EIDL, also the EIDL Advance, if you receive that, which Lakita mentioned, if you receive that, it's no longer subtracted from your Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness. So one thing that they did earlier in the year to try to prioritize relief for smaller businesses was that they had a 14-day exclusive application period where lenders could only submit applications for smaller businesses and nonprofits with fewer than 20 employees. Also, increased support for independent contractors, sole proprietors, and eligible self-employed individuals as well. Some important things to note about changes to the Paycheck Protection Program processes. Schedule C filers can now use gross income rather than net profit. Of course, gross tends to be a larger number or visible real number for many Schedule C filers than the net profit line on your tax return. So that was a concern that many individuals had, and that's something that has been rectified now. If you submitted a Schedule C Paycheck Protection Program application prior to March 3rd, 2021, you can actually speak to your lender to see if it can be withdrawn. So if you are still in process from an application that you submitted prior to that point, if you're a Schedule C filer, you may want to reach out to your lender to see if they can revise your application or withdraw it. Some other points. So the Paycheck Protection Program eligibility has been expanded somewhat and clarified. Restrictions were eliminated for business owners who had prior non-financial fraud felony convictions. Also eliminated the restrictions on businesses owned or controlled by owners who are currently delinquent or have defaulted on student loan debt. Also clarified was that people lawfully residing in the U.S. Have access to Paycheck Protection Program, permitting the use of individual taxpayer identification numbers as an identifier for that borrower. So just some basics. If you are looking to get into the Paycheck Protection Program and to take out a loan, we do have on our website, if you go to sba.gov/PPP, there is a link where you can look up lenders by your zip code. That tends to be the most effective tool to use. I wouldn't use the lender match tool for this just because it's a special program, and in some instances, borrowers or lenders are in different states of accepting applications or processing applications where lender match may not be the best option. You may want to look it up by your zip code. But also, to qualify for Paycheck Protection Program, you must have been in business by February 15, 2020. Borrowers can set the covered period, as I mentioned, in any 8-week period after disbursement, 8 to 24-week period after disbursement. It can't be prior to disbursement. So a lot of people ask me if you can do sort of a retroactive covered period, and you can't do that. Additional types of entities are now eligible. Some of those entities are, private nonprofits and chambers, and there's a few other groups that are now eligible that previously weren't. You must apply. Well, at this point, they've actually extended it, and so that's one really positive thing. I actually have an old deadline here in front of me. Eligible expenses included in Paycheck Protection Program now include payroll costs, rent, mortgage interest, utilities, operations expenditures, certain types of property damage costs, supplier costs, and expenditures on worker protection. So if you spent money on PPE and certain types of, or if you had damage related to very specific, actually damage related to, I think there was a set aside for damage related to, in certain geographies, either weather events, or in certain other geographies, there were damages caused by rioting that were in some instances. So for eligibility for a first draw loan, you basically need to be, as I mentioned, in business by February 15, 2020, sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed individual. There's a whole list I could provide you of the different entities that you would need to have to qualify, but for the most part, if you fit that sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed, have a partnership, corporation, or LLC, tribal businesses are also included. 501c3s are included. Veterans or 501c19s, which are veterans organizations, are included. Housing cooperatives are also included in eligibility for that. to qualify for a second draw, as I mentioned, there is a higher standard for qualification for that. Also, bear in mind that your loan amount for your first draw is going to be 2.5 times your average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs. So that's something to bear in mind. You need to be able to show your payroll costs. Typically, as we were talking about for Schedule C filer, they would be using your gross income to help you figure out what your total loan amount would be. In the case of a second draw loan, so if you've already received Paycheck Protection Program once, the basic standard is that you would need to have, number one, received the PPP loan and spent that entire loan for the first draw. You would need to have fewer than 300 employees, and you need to be able to show that you suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. So one challenge with that is that there are businesses that started before February 15th of 2020, but in some instances, for example, businesses that started in August of 2019 sometimes are going to have difficulty showing that 25% reduction in gross receipts in comparable quarters between 2019 and 2020, because you really only have, one quarter. And in some instances, because you were starting up, that quarter may have been, sort of a low dollar revenue quarter in the first place. So in some instances, there are businesses that technically qualify but are not able to meet that 25% reduction in gross receipts case. There is an alternate test. The alternate test is actually, in some instances, even more challenging because you have to then show that your year over year, 2019 to 2020, showed a 25% loss. The process for applying for PPP loans, as I mentioned, you want to go to sba.gov/PPP, and you can actually find a lender. There are lots of community development financial institutions who are lending, credit unions who are lending as well. There are banks, large banks who are lending, and there are also online financial technology companies that are facilitating the lending process too. What I would say is definitely think about the level of customer service that you may need in submitting an application. So if you're going to need a really high level of customer service and support, I would be somewhat cautious about doing everything fully online, just because typically when things are done completely online, they rely on some efficiencies in the customer service and sort of contact area to help keep that sort of amount of touches down per application. So if you're going to apply online, make sure you're really comfortable doing business online and communicating via email. If you think you need some support, there are lots of opportunities to get support. The Michigan CPA Association of CPAs actually has some really cool tools on their website, and I believe they're micpa.org, and they actually have sort of a Q&A and some other resources there. You also want to visit the sba.gov/PPP website for frequently asked questions, which is sort of the authoritative and comprehensive approach to getting answers. In some instances, however, if you have questions about the tax basis or tax implications of forgiveness, that's where you would want to go and reach out to the MICPA or other groups that can sort of help you understand what the tax implications may be. For the amounts of the PPP loan that are not forgiven, it effectively converts into a 1% non-compounding, non-adjustable loan. There's no requirement for collateral or personal guarantees, no fees or prepayment penalties, and the maturity is 5 years. So if a portion of your loan is not forgiven, it converts into what I would term as a pretty favorable loan. Also, things to bear in mind is that you are required to submit an application for forgiveness with your lender within 10 months of the end of your covered period. So you select that covered period, and it's 8 to 24 weeks. At the end of that window starts a clock, and you've got 10 months to submit for forgiveness or start making payments on your loan. Also, the EIDL application, as Lakita Henderson mentioned, is still open, and that's also a very favorable loan. I tell people all the time that it's very uncommon that someone will lend you money on your losses, So the economic injury disaster loan is a really unique opportunity. The Economic Aid Act extended the deadline to December 31st of this year, and so you can still apply for that. The terms are basically 3.75% for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. It's a fixed 30-year with no prepayment penalty. Loans over $25,000 would be secured by UCC filing. Also, for eligibility, qualified businesses, cooperatives, agricultural enterprises with 500 or fewer employees can apply on our website. You'll find a yellow banner. If you go to SBA.gov, there's a yellow banner that will take you to COVID-19 relief options, and the EIDL is one of the first options. And of course, as I mentioned, a lot of people, of course, in business try to avoid racking up lots of debt. EIDL program, though, is a really unique opportunity to take out money based on your losses to help you survive the pandemic. One thing to bear in mind, this is not a growth loan, so some of the authorized uses of the loan, you really can't use necessarily to expand your business, but it's definitely a type of thing you can use if you've had to make updates for due to the disaster, if you've had to sort of change your business model or reshape how you do business. It can help you cover some of that expense, and also if you've lost significant amounts of revenue due to the pandemic, it can help you cover some of those losses depending on what you're looking to, how you're looking to deploy the funds. Also, another interesting point of the debt relief, of the COVID-19 response has been debt relief. So if you have a 7A, 504, or micro loan, you can actually receive some forbearance on that loan. If you are a new 7A, 504, or micro loan borrower approved after February 1st, 2021, and through September 30th, 2021, the SBA will pay 3 months of principal and interest after the loan is fully dispersed, and after any deferment, and that's capped at $9,000 per month per loan. Borrowers don't actually need to reach out to apply for this. It's automatically baked into your loan and will likely be processed with your loan. Eligible borrowers will likely receive a letter for that. As Keita mentioned, the office, there's an office that's going back through the EIDL advanced applications and effectively making you whole. So the program was intended to be $10,000 or was initially offered at $10,000, and due to the amount of demand and the amount of dollars that were in the pot, what happened was most people received $1,000 per employee that they noted on their application. So now what they're doing is they're going back through the businesses that meet certain criteria, mostly are businesses in low-income communities, and they are effectively having you go through a process that will make you whole. The second criteria, so low-income community, and the second criteria is that you have suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and there's a third that you have 300 or fewer employees. So there are three criteria: low-income community, greater than 30% economic loss, and 300 or fewer employees. So if you meet those criteria, they will reach out. They're emailing folks that's already begun and basically having you go through a process. It's really smart to do that, because if they just went through and sort of based on their own presumptions process payments, they would find, as many people I've talked to, they've had banking changes, routing number changes, and all manner of errors. So it's really good that they're reaching out to get people connected to that opportunity. So if that's something that you think you may be eligible for, they will reach out to you. We don't handle that at the local office. It's a function of a different office, but there is an email that they should be reaching out from. The goal is to process most of those applications within short order after they reach out to you, but they are reaching out to folks sort of on a rolling basis. As Akita mentioned, we are hoping to see the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant portal reopen, and we know people are working diligently on that. So we're really excited about that. She also mentioned the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and so that's something that we're going to be hopefully seeing as well soon. And but other than that, I think that's basically the overview for right now. As Keita mentioned, I do represent the SBA in your area, so you're welcome to give me a call at 313-460-2700 or send me an email at sean-ray-lewis@sba.gov, and I will do my very best to get back to you if you have any questions about our programs or opportunities. Also, of course, let's talk about our programs. For the most part, are the focus helping you have support in terms of access to capital, access to counseling through the Small Business Development Center, and also access to contracting through business opportunity specialists who work with us, who can help you understand if you might qualify for 8A contracting or disadvantaged business contracting opportunities with federal government. And for that, we typically reach out to our procurement technical assistance centers. But we have a number of resources that we connect you to that can help you if you're looking to start or grow your business. Other than that, I can answer any questions or do my best to answer any questions if anyone has a question.
One more thing, Sean, let me say something real quick. Can I just say one thing to piggyback off of Sean? I just want to let you know that if anyone has applied for CP forgiveness and have not heard back yet, just be patient. They're working as fast as they can. The demand has been high. So it takes longer than 90 days to get that decision back to you. It's running between 120 and 150, but they are working diligently to do that. Now we can take questions now. That's fine.
Thank you, Sean and Lakita. And before we jump into questions, I know our friend Gary Jones has a limited time window from Governor Whitmer's office, so I'd like to give him the floor for just a couple of minutes to give his update before we get into questions, if that's okay. Gary, do you want to jump on real quick? I know you have a limited window, so do you want to give an update?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Justin. I can should only be a couple of minutes here. So just wanted to do a couple quick announcements. So the governor announced yesterday her funding priorities as the state readies for more than $18 billion in federal funding available through the American Rescue Plan Act. State government is expected to receive $5.7 billion in additional federal funding, in addition to $4.4 billion directed to local governments and $3.9 billion to K-12 schools. Several key priority areas for investment that have sustainable and long-term benefits include job creation, infrastructure, access to healthcare, and children and their education. At a recent press conference in Lansing, the governor announced that Michigan will hit more than 5 million vaccinations. While vaccine supply has increased dramatically since the Biden administration took office, the state is currently experiencing a serious spike in COVID-19 cases that is putting pressure on Michigan hospital systems. To slow the spread of the virus and protect more Michiganders, the governor renewed her call for the federal government to surge additional vaccines to Michigan, while also urging high schools to shift to remote learning, encouraging diners to choose outdoor dining or takeout instead of indoor seating, and recommending youth sports suspend in-person activities for the next 2 weeks. Also, the Healthy Michigan Plan is now providing healthcare coverage to more than 900,000 residents for the first time. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of Healthy Michigan beneficiaries jumped from 682,000 in late March 2020 to more than 900,000 now. Michigan instituted policies to help families access affordable healthcare coverage, such as deciding to avoid terminating Healthy Michigan Plan coverage and freeze premiums as long as the COVID-19 public health emergency exists. In addition, Governor and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist released supportive statements after the Biden administration sent a letter to Michigan announcing that it is taking steps to ensure greater access to health care under Healthy Michigan Plan by removing restrictive Medicaid requirements. And also, the governor and MDHHS are urging Michiganders to get tested for COVID-19 upon returning from spring break in an effort to help slow the spread of COVID-19. Students and families traveling across Michigan to other states or out of the country risk being exposed to and carrying COVID-19 with them. This, in turn, could fuel outbreaks within their households and the communities where they live or visit. And lastly, the governor raised Michigan's COVID-19 vaccination goal from 50,000 to 100,000 shots per day. The new goal is based on the state's successful efforts to expand equitable and efficient vaccine administration by partnering both with private and public organizations and communities across the state, and is made possible by continuous week-over-week increases in the number of vaccines allotted to the state of Michigan. And I have time for maybe like one or two questions, but my 9:30 did just start like a couple minutes ago.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary. Always appreciate your updates on the call. And then thank you, Lakita, and thank you, Sean. I am going to open the floor real quick. If you have any questions for Gary from Governor Wimmer's office, or any questions for Sean or Lakita from our Michigan District SBA office, now's the time to ask them. Anyone have any questions? Hit *6 on your phone. Well, I'll make a comment here real quick. Sean, I will share your contact information via email with all of our stakeholders. So probably expect to get some follow-up calls and emails regarding some of the different programs. But the one question that I do want to ask, and I've heard this concern from different people, sort of normal lending, if you will, has really slowed down. The process has slowed down in terms of getting capital. Now, I understand we're in a very challenging environment right now to do deals, but can you talk about, sort of traditional lending? And I know you guys are very critical in traditional lending with things like 7A and 504. But can you talk about timelines? When I say slowed down, I'm not talking about SBA is slowing anything down. I'm just saying the whole process is slowed down. Can you talk about what you're seeing in normal lending right now, and the process with banks, and what's happening with just regular everyday lending?
Well, I can try to speak to that. I used to be a lender relations specialist, but we have people on our team who actually sort of help oversee that, and who could probably give you a more concise or precise answer. What I would say is, I think when you look at the ask of, from Treasury Department and the Congress and our government of banks to participate in sort of a voluntary program like PPP, is sort of a heavy lift. And so I do think that's having some impact on sort of customer service and lead times. Also, on the banking side, there is some, there's some market uncertainty. And so it sort of makes due diligence take a bit longer and research take a bit longer. So I know things are moving a bit more slowly just from folks I've talked to over the course of the past 3 months than they normally would. And I think what we're seeing, just like when we look at the Paycheck Protection Program loans, which in this round have more scrutiny built in up front of, what types of debt does the borrower have, what types of, if there are any other character issues and other research, that sort of underwriting process. I know banks are really going above and beyond doing sort of due diligence, and their underwriting staffs are significantly strained because their underwriting team is the team that really is sort of the tip of the spear in terms of interacting with us on PPP, and they are the folks who would typically be underwriting 7A or 504 deals too. So there definitely is sort of a bandwidth issue there for many banks, but I know that there are, we're not allowed to sort of endorse specific banks, but I know that there are many banks who are, working through deals, with basically the same level of speed that they normally did. I think some of the banks that have been more engaged in Paycheck Protection Program have seen sort of a little bit of a bandwidth issue, but it's sort of it's there. What some of the bankers I have spoken with suggest is this sort of they're working through internal processes to try to speed up those processes, so it's something that hasn't gone unnoticed. To get more specific details about what types of delays there are out there and where the bottlenecks are, you would have to probably talk to one of our lender relations specialists just to get more clarity on where to go or how to sort of do routing and guiding borrowers to specific banks. But I know that there are many banks, some of our leading banks, Huntington, Chase, Citizens, all the banks that really tend to be at the top of the list of the volume of loans they typically do, most of those banks have really significant capacity to process loans. And even though there's the PPP program, which is sort of borrowing from that bandwidth, I don't see where banks are sort of just shuttering the application process. It's just moving a bit more deliberately than normal.
Thank you, Sean, and I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head on what the issues are, and so obviously we just have to work through the process with that. We do have relationships with a lot of great banks here locally. It's an interesting time right now because you're right. There's a lot of processing of these programs to still help businesses survive. While at the same time, and this is good news, there are businesses that are trying to start, entrepreneurs. There are businesses that are expanding, and so we want to make sure their needs get met as well. But I think you're spot on. Does anyone else have any questions? I know Gary is off the call now, but any questions for Lakita or Sean on any small business programs? Anyone have any questions? *6 on your phone if you do. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I will, as I mentioned, be sharing the contact information for you, Sean, with all of our stakeholders and ask them to contact you directly if they have any SBA-related questions. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Lakita, both of you, for coming on today. We look forward to a good partnership going forward. These programs, these tools are hugely critical to our businesses in the county. Over 600 companies have gotten PPP funding. Many have gotten EIDL. Obviously, the 7A program in 504 has been very helpful over the years too, and the new programs like the restaurant fund. So very much appreciate the partnership, and we'll definitely get you connected here in Shiawassee County. The last thing real quick, because we're running a little bit late on time, I did want to cover vaccine update. As I mentioned, we don't have anyone on the call today, but the biggest news I want to announce, certainly you want to continue to get yourself on lists to sign up, but there is going to be a vaccine clinic this Saturday at the Baker College Welcome Center on South 52 Saturday morning. And it was going to be a Johnson & Johnson clinic, but you might have seen today that the federal CDC, the health folks said that they're going to put Johnson & Johnson on pause. So our health department is switching that clinic to a Moderna clinic. So I'm going to be sharing information with everybody via email. If anyone is looking to get the vaccine, or anyone on your team is looking to get the vaccine, there will be a clinic this Saturday morning. So other than that, all of the other clinics that are lined up are for people that are already in the pipeline for second shot clinics. But I'll reiterate what the hospital, what the health department tell us every week. Get yourself on every list that you can, but there is one this week. So look for an email on that to get signed up for that clinic this Saturday. So with that, we're going to let everybody go. Thank you all for your time today. Appreciate you making time to be here. Next week, we will have representatives from Senator Stabenow's office to give an update. So thank you all for being with us. Have a good rest of your day.